Hi! In this tutorial, I'll walk you through how to use Procedural Interiors, a tool designed to streamline the creation of photorealistic interior spaces for architectural visualization. From generating the base layout to furnishing the scene, Procedural Interiors helps you build high-quality interiors faster and with greater flexibility. So let's jump in and see what you can create with Procedural Interiors. To install the add-on, open the Preferences window and go to the Add-ons tab. Click the button at the top and then select Install from Disk. Next, locate the files you downloaded from Superhive. You'll find this 2 zip files and another one that we'll use later for the asset browser. You'll need to unzip the zip file named Procedural Interiors Assets, version 1.0. We'll use the extracted folder to assign it as an asset folder after installing the add-on. To install the add-on, select the zip file Procedural Interiors version 1.0 and click Install from Disk. Finally, expand the add-on's general settings and locate the Procedural Interiors Assets folder that we unzipped earlier. Open the folder and click Accept. That's it. You're now ready to start using the add-on. When you expand the add-on interface from the end panel, you'll see several tabs, each organized to streamline the interior creation process, from building the main structure to adding doors and windows. You can also insert presets to begin decorating your rooms with a predefined layout. Some tabs will be used throughout the entire process, such as those for navigating between floors or editing elements you've already placed. We'll start with the Overlays tab. The Overlays tab will be useful throughout the entire process of creating your interiors. When expanded, you'll see various icons that let you show or hide different overlays from the add-on, such as measurements, angles, and more. Clicking the eye icon will toggle all overlays on or off at once. To create the main structure, you can use the Reference feature. This allows you to import a floor plan image, scale it to real-world size, and use it as a guide for drawing walls and other elements. For this example, we'll be using this floor plan. You have several options to adjust opacity, rotation, and scale. When you import an image into Blender, its size usually won't match the real-world scale of an apartment. To fix that, we'll click this icon to scale it properly. We'll use a dimensioned element from the image as a reference, in this case, the top wall, which we know is 12 meters long. Click on one corner, then the other. A new field will appear under Reference Scale field. Enter the length of the segment you just drew. This will scale the image proportionally so that segment matches the correct size. Once that's done, click this icon to reposition the image at the center. That's it! Your reference image is now at the correct scale and you can start building your structure. You can show or hide the reference image whenever you need, and you can also choose to display it only when using the top view. In the Floor Management tab, we'll be able to adjust some parameters for each floor, but we'll come back to that later. First, we need to create the structure. The Structure tab is divided into several sections. We'll start with the Space section to create the outer shape of the structure. Here you can choose between 3 methods: inclined rectangle, polyline, and rectangle. Below that, you can expand some additional settings where you can set the name of your object, the height of the floor, and the thickness of the walls. All of these can also be modified later. For this case, we can use the rectangle option. Now I'll use the polyline option to show how it works. Click on one corner, and from there you can draw a line in any direction. To draw a line with an exact length, just type the distance on your keyboard and press Enter. When you're about to place the last wall, don't click back on the first point. Just press Enter and the final wall will be created automatically between the last point and the first one. If you need to reposition the walls, you can use the Reposition Walls button, which replaces the Draw Wall button once the lines have been drawn. You can move both the corners and the walls. Now that we've created the first floor, let's take a look at how the Floor Management tab works. In the drop-down list, you'll see all the floors you've created. From here, you can rename a floor, adjust its height, or enable the Isolate option. The Isolate option isolates the selected floor and hides the ceiling. When you create the first floor, this option is enabled by default, so you can see the interior. On the right side, you'll find several buttons. The arrow buttons let you move the selected floor up or down to reorganize the floor order. The plus and minus buttons let you create or delete floors. When you create a new floor, it will be empty. You'll need to draw its shape from the Structure tab, just like we did earlier. Lastly, you can also duplicate the selected floor, which is very useful since most floors tend to share the same layout. Next, we're going to create the interior spaces. To do that, go back to the Structure tab and open the Layout section. You'll find some settings you can adjust now, though they can also be changed later. Click the Slice Floor button and start drawing the interior walls using the reference image as a guide. When you finish one wall, you can right-click to start drawing another from a different point. Once you're done, press Enter and the walls will be created. If you go back to the Overlays tab, you can show or hide any information you need. Our floor plan has 2 columns, so we're going to place them from the Columns section. You can choose between circular or square columns. In addition to basic settings, you can also decide whether to place them individually or distribute them in a line or a grid. In this case, I'll just place one. When you place elements like columns, doors, or others, a pop-up menu will appear allowing you to adjust their parameters. If you prefer not to see this menu, you can disable it from the add-on settings. Going back to the Layout section, you can delete any areas you previously created at any time using the Delete Areas button. Click and hold the mouse button while dragging over all the areas you want to remove. Now we'll add the last structural element. Walls that don't serve to divide spaces but are used instead for things like built-in closets or purely decorative purposes. You can choose from 3 types. In this case, I'll select a partition wall to complete the remaining sections of the plan. Just like with the other elements, click the Draw button and trace the walls using the floor plan as a guide. You can adjust the position of structural elements at any time using the reposition buttons. Later on, we'll see how to change other parameters like color or thickness from the Parameterize tab. Once we've finished the main structure, we are going to add doors, windows, and staircases to our apartment from the Openings and Circulation tab. Let's start with the doors. Expand this menu to choose the type of door you want. Interior doors are procedural, which means you can adjust their width, height, and even the door opening animation. Exterior doors, on the other hand, come in standard sizes and cannot be modified. Just like in the Structure tab, you can set some parameters before placing each element. Use the Draw Door button to begin placing them. Both doors and windows will snap to the nearest wall as you move your cursor. Now let's place the windows. You can choose between hinged or sliding styles. There are 2 placement methods. With Place Window, you first define the top and bottom positions of the window, as well as its width. Then simply place it on a wall using the Draw button. This is the default method, since windows usually share these dimensions. The Click and Drag method lets you freely draw windows on the wall. However, you can also use the Align Top and Align Bottom options to set boundaries within which you can draw. In this case, I'll use Place Window. Even though our floor plan doesn't include stairs, let's take a look at how they work. You can choose between 3 different designs and set some initial parameters. Click the Draw button and trace the staircase. It's very important that you draw the staircase in a clockwise direction, otherwise the mesh won't generate correctly. You can create staircases with up to 3 sections. Just like with the elements from the Structure tab, you can reposition any items you've created at any time. Before explaining how presets work, let's go over the Parameterize tab. This tab allows you to modify the parameters of every element in your apartment. At the top, you'll find 3 options. All Instances lets you modify all elements at once. Active Floor Instances lets you modify all elements on the currently selected floor. In this case, we only have 1, but if there were more, you just need to go to the Floor Management tab and select the floor you want to edit. Individual Instances lets you edit each element individually. Let's start by adjusting a few parameters so that our model better matches the reference plan. You'll notice the partition walls in our 3D model are thicker than in the plan. Let's fix that. Since we want to change all of them at once, we'll select All Instances, choose Partition Wall as the element type, and adjust the thickness parameter. Also, when we place the doors, some weren't facing the correct direction. Let's fix that too. Since we don't want to flip all the doors, we'll switch to Individual Instances. Remember, this tab only shows elements from the currently selected floor, so make sure you've selected the right one. You can select elements either directly from this menu or by using the Parameterize Mode button and selecting them in the viewport. When you select an element, a menu with its parameters will appear. Adjust them until you get the result you want. For more general edits, we can go back to All Instances and modify settings like door height or material. You can also change elements like walls or the floor. For walls, you can hide them to merge 2 spaces. You can also change their color or adjust the floor material. Up until now, we had the Isolate option enabled to view the interior. Let's disable it so we can take a look at the available ceiling types. The ceiling is defined for each subspace individually, meaning you can choose a different type for each room. Once we've finished creating and adjusting our interior, it's time to furnish it. The add-on includes a feature that lets you import room presets to speed up the process, although in most cases you'll need to make some small adjustments to fit your specific space. If you prefer not to use these presets, you can import the furniture included with the add-on from the Asset Browser, which we'll explain how to set up later. Of course, you can also furnish the space using your own assets. In this tab, you'll find a drop-down menu to select the space you want to furnish, along with several presets for each room type, which you can switch between by clicking the preview images. Once you've chosen a preset, use the Furnish Subspace button to select which space you want to furnish. In this case, I'll furnish this bathroom. When you click on a space, the assets will be placed automatically. Depending on the preset, you might need to wait a bit while Blender imports all the necessary models and textures. In this menu, you'll be able to modify the available parameters. In many cases, you can only change the orientation, but others, like kitchens, have many more options to adjust. Before clicking OK button, choose between Realize Instances to edit the assets manually, or keep parametric if you want to keep editing the preset parameters later. Each furnished room is treated as a separate object. When you select one, the contents of the Furnishing Presets tab will change, allowing you to edit it. When you're finished, click Apply Presets to be able to adjust each individual asset. Now I'm going to place the kitchen, but I want it to be open to the living room. To place it in just one part of the room, I'll divide the space using the Layout tool, and then hide the wall from the Parameterize tab as we saw earlier. Now we'll place the kitchen in the same way. Choose the type and select the space you want to furnish. As you can see, the kitchen preset includes more parameters that let you adapt the cabinets to the walls or change the materials. You can also adjust the position of each element or change the seed for the decorative elements, among other options. When you finish, you can apply the preset to start editing the assets individually. Once you've finished adding all the presets you want, you can convert the procedural mesh into a real mesh. This option is useful if you need to make adjustments that aren't available through the add-on's parameters, or if you need to export the model to another software. Before doing this, make sure to disable the Isolate option so that all floors are visible and the ceilings are shown. Click the Apply Model button, and that's it. You'll see that each element is organized in the outliner by floor and type. If you need to make any additional edits, like moving vertices or changing the texture of a specific wall, you can do it now. The procedural object is hidden, so you can always go back to it if needed. Now let's take a look at how to add the included assets to the asset browser. In the downloaded files, you'll also find a folder with Asset Browser in its name. It's important not to confuse this with the other files when installing the add-on, as it won't work. Unzip this folder. Then, in Blender, open the Preferences window and go to the File Paths tab. Click this icon and select the folder you just unzipped. You can change the name that will appear in the Asset Browser if you want. Now, open the Asset Browser and select Procedural Interiors. You'll find Materials, Models, and Procedural Assets. You can place the models by simply dragging them into your scene. If you want to change a material, for example, to use a different wood finish, just drag it onto the object, and it will automatically be replaced. Feel free to combine these assets with any others you like to furnish your interior. You can also import procedural assets, just like the ones we used when creating the interior. Depending on the import settings, some additional models required to build the procedural asset might be imported into the scene. If that happens, simply hide them in a collection to keep your scene organized. For doors and windows, you can adjust the width by entering Edit Mode. For staircases, enter Edit Mode to modify their shape and create up to 3 sections. Lastly, you can modify the parameters from the Modifiers tab. You can also add furniture pieces that adapt to the shape of the room. In these cases, go into Edit Mode to adjust their shape. Just like with the previous assets, you can tweak their parameters from the Modifiers tab. Finally, you can open the Help tab to access this tutorial, the documentation, or our Discord channel. If you need support, you can reach out to us via Discord or Superhive, though we recommend Discord for a fastest response.